Peace to the leaders, achievers, hip-hop believers, and future seers. You already know it's your boy, the Overwrites, the man who definitely does control the hype. And right now, I am chilling with the, would I say legendary? Are you at the point where you're now a legendary artist? Because now the first time I heard your music and your rhyme was on a Proverb track called Street Music and all that. You know what I'm saying? So can we just talk about, like, I could say your evolution as an artist before we talk about the brand? And would you say that you're the same nigga you were then versus now?
Parts of me, yes, are still the same. Parts of me, no, definitely have changed. In fact, you know, I think my evolution is in my evolution as a person. You know, the things I used to believe in back then have shifted. But I think the core of who I am hasn't really changed. You know, I'm still about the music. I'm still about the stories. I'm still about the entertainment. I'm still about the culture, you know, but it's not the same as it was before. We were just kids, just rhyming back then, you know, but now it's become bigger than that. So yeah, I'd say my evolution is definitely rooted in my evolution as a person. Just going from just being a rapper to become like a business.
Yeah. Now, no diggity, man. So now with regards to this whole 64 bar situation, man, I heard your situation, man, inside. That was crazy. And can you just talk to me about the importance of rappers still being able to rap like that?
Listen, I think the importance will always dwell on the individual. For me, you know, I grew up and I came up with people who made me aware of how if you're going to be a part of something, you have to be a part of it holistically. You know, if you're going to be the coach, you must have known how to be the linesman and the referee and the goalkeeper and, you know, the guy who does the passing. You must be able to play in big fields, small fields. And this just falls under the sport of just being a rapper, you know. I think for me, it's important. It's important to always flex that muscle and to know that I can still do it because I came up from it. Some people don't think it's important and some people are just living their lives just fine, you know, just doing their thing. But not for me, man.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of guys coming up in the space right now on a hip-hop level. And I could say, just from my perspective, we are very quick to making people superstars before they actually get to where they need to be in terms of paying dues. What has not paying dues actually resulted in? Because now I could say the longevity of artists, there's no longevity anymore because niggas didn't pay dues. So I just want to know your perspective on that.
I think that one is just a scientific, you know, and just a plain exercise in any industry, you know. No soccer player plays well without training. You know, there's no way you can be developed for 2 years and be expected to have a 30-year career. You know, there's no way you can be developed for 2 months and be expected to be in the game for longer than that. You know, I'm very big on artist development. I work with a lot of young artists, and you know, that's part of the reason why I've never actually chosen to sign artists, is because I realized of the amount of work that artists need to have before, or the amount of work artists need to put in before they get signed. And half the time when people get signed, they think it's go time. But you know, if you go and look at the States, some of your biggest artists got signed in 2017 and blew up in 2023. You ask yourself what was going on in those 5 years. That's just plain simple mathematics and science.
Cook you.
You know, if you want to stay in here longer, you know, get cooked longer. You know, I was running around at 17 doing jingles for DJ Fresh, and I dropped my first official project when I was 24, you know, 25. So it's like that whole time I was getting schooled by Verb, I was getting schooled by Zubs, I was getting schooled by H2O, I was getting schooled by Doomy, I was getting schooled by Pro Kid, by Proverb. Sometimes I get schooled by AKA, sometimes I get schooled by Double HP, but I was busy getting schooled so that by the time you show up, you really are ready. So it's at your own risk, man. If you've been doing this for 2 years like the game, well, ask him.
Yeah. Can I ask you this then? So now there's now the industry, right? Because now you basically, what you're saying, you're alluding to, it's the, from what you're saying, I could say it's the industry's fault that artists are being pushed at such a crazy rate, right? So now I just want to know, in terms of like the culture, like culture versus industry, how important is it for you to be rooted in the culture of hip hop before you go out into the industry? Because now there's lots of cats that are out here spitting and all that, but then you can see by the way they carry themselves, they're not really cultured in this thing called hip hop.
Look, for me it matters, but I can tell you now, for a lot of people, it doesn't really matter because, you know, some of these major record labels, they have no single person that is cultured in the culture whatsoever.
Yeah.
And they probably back in the most selling artist in the country right now.
Yeah.
The sake of, I think understanding culture is necessary for you as an individual just to know how to move around these spaces, because there's a lot of nuances that people need to understand when it comes to the reality that Pretoria hip-hop and Soweto hip-hop and Durban hip-hop and Katlehong hip-hop is not the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and understanding why it's different and understanding why the one works and why the other one works, that's understanding the culture. But for me to be able to sit here right now and say, Horrid looks like he's going to be a big rapper in 5 years, I really don't have to be a part of the culture for me to notice that. I could just pick him up. It would be his responsibility to be a part of the culture, because at the end of the day, what we all need to remember is this is a fucking industry.
Yeah.
You know, and in this industry, people are looking for what's hot and what's going to make money. And, you know, I bet you now, the guys that sell McDonald's burgers don't give a fuck about beef.
Yeah,
and how pure it is.
Man, ain't no even meat in that beef.
They don't care. They don't really care.
Yeah.
You know, they really focused on selling these burgers. And they're going to find the quickest way to sell these burgers. Some of these labels don't give a fuck about your artist and how rooted they are in culture.
Yeah.
If that nigga knows how to jump from a hip-hop song to a piano song to a Kwaito song to that other song, then we taking him and we running and we putting money in his pocket, and then he owes us for the rest of our lives. That's really the business.
Yeah. Okay, so one last thing, right? Big shout out to Redbull for hooking us up, right? I was listening to your situation, right? So now there's a point where you were educating us, because now you were like, yo, man, I used to cipher with emphatic tabs and emphatic tabs and Adonis and all that legendary cats, right? That the generation right now don't know about, né? And then also and then you also gave or responded to some smoke. You gave out some smoke and all that. So can you just talk to us about like the content of your cipher right now, your 64 bars, and how important it was for you to actually let people know where you're from, and then also address things that people are saying?
Look, all I can tell you is I come from a generation where mixtape culture taught me that freestyles are really about sincerity, honesty, and unpacking your feelings, and really, really knowing how to use the skill of telling a story based on, you know, what you feel and what you think sincerely.
Yeah.
You know, with a little bit of skill in there, you know, it's like taking all your favorite elements and putting them all in one verse.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what mine was about. You know, there's a lot of things that have been happening in my life that people have seen. I talk about that. There's a lot of things that have been happening in my life that people have never seen that I talk about. There's a lot of things that I feel people should know, that people don't know. So yeah, a lot of it is really education. You know, you can never forget the educational element of hip hop. You know, listening to Jay-Z, listening to Nas, listening to Kanye, brand names, you know, mafia names, you know, like street corners and all that shit. The name dropping is really about, it really is education, making somebody being able to go back and say, who's Simone Harris and Funga?
Yeah.
You know, being able to go back and say, yo, who's Emphatic Tab?
Yeah, like era. What you know about the era?
Right.
Yeah.
And then again, which comes back to the same thing, to say, yo, if a person who was there is not documenting or talking about it, how would anybody ever know?
Yeah, but then that's the thing, right? So you came up in an era where the game wasn't documented.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we had to like when I started like doing this whole thing with Where's the Beef and Sluggies, we had to like go and listen to the music and actually connect the dots and then formulate some kind of thought. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's really dope that you're actually putting it out there. So now just one last thing, man. Did you look at the camera and be like, yo, it's your boy Reason or Sizwe Alakine, and I am on the grind?
Hey, what up? It's your boy Sizwe Alakine, aka the Almighty God Body Reason. You are on the grind.